If you are one of those people going through something difficult right now that you don't fully understand, and you feel like your faith has become unstable, like there are moments where you believe and moments where you doubt, moments where you trust and moments where nothing seems to make sense, then stay here for a moment, because this prayer is for you, for that place where you are trying to hold on but feel tired inside. For that part of you that is still trying to believe even when everything around you feels uncertain. And wherever you are right now, you don't need to have the right words. And you don't need to feel strong. Just stay here and allow this moment to carry you. Heavenly Father, in this moment I come before you with everything that I am carrying, even the things I don't fully understand how to express. There are thoughts in my mind that feel heavy, questions in my heart that have not been answered, and situations in my life that I cannot seem to make sense of. And yet here I am, choosing to come to you, even if my faith feels fragile, even if my trust feels shaken, even if I don't have clarity about what is happening around me. You see every part of this moment. You see what I am facing, what I am thinking, what I am feeling, and even what I have not been able to say out loud. You understand the weight that I have been carrying, the quiet battles that no one else sees, and the effort it takes just to keep going when everything inside feels uncertain. Nothing about this is hidden from you. There are moments, Lord, when I feel strong, when I feel like I can trust without hesitation, but there are also moments where doubt begins to enter quietly, where my mind starts to question, and my heart starts to feel unsteady. Not because I don't want to believe, but because what I am going through feels bigger than what I can handle on my own. And in those moments, I don't always know how to respond. But even in that, I choose to come to you honestly, not pretending, not forcing words that don't feel real, but bringing everything as it is. The confusion, the tiredness, the fear, and even the uncertainty about what comes next. Because I know that you are not distant from me in this. You are present even when I don't feel it clearly. Right now I ask you to meet me in this exact place. Not where I think I should be, not where I wish I was, but where I truly am. In the middle of questions, in the middle of emotions, in the middle of not knowing what the outcome will be. Help me to stay grounded, even when things around me feel unstable. To have answers, to know why things are happening the way they are. But I also recognize that I don't have control over everything. And that trying to figure it all out has only made my mind more tired. So in this moment, I begin to release that need, even if it is not easy. Teach me how to trust you in a deeper way, not only when things make sense, but also when they don't. Teach me how to remain steady even when my emotions shift. Let my faith not depend on how everything looks, but on who you are. Strengthen the part of me that still believes, even if it feels small right now. Strengthen that quiet trust that is still there, even if it feels fragile. Remind me that faith does not have to be perfect to be real, and that even in moments of doubt, I can still come to you without fear. As I continue this day, I ask that you guide my thoughts. When my mind starts to overthink, help me return to stillness. When fear begins to rise, help me remember that I am not facing this alone. When I feel overwhelmed, help me take one step at a time instead of trying to carry everything at once. I don't need to have everything resolved right now. I don't need to have all the answers. What I need is the ability to keep moving forward with a sense of calm, with a sense of trust, and with the awareness that you are walking with me through this. So in this moment I choose to stay. I choose not to run from what I am feeling, but to bring it into your presence. I choose to believe, even if that belief feels quiet. I choose to trust, even if that trust is still growing. And as this prayer continues, I allow myself to rest in that truth, knowing that even in difficult times, you are still present, still working, and still holding me in ways I may not fully see yet. Gracious God, as I remain in this moment with you, I begin to recognize how much of what I have been carrying has been internal, quiet, and difficult to explain even to myself. There are things that have been building inside me over time, thoughts that repeat, emotions that rise unexpectedly, and a constant sense of trying to stay composed even when something within feels unsettled. It is not always visible to others, and because of that it can feel isolating, like I am the only one navigating this kind of weight. But I know that nothing I experience is hidden from you, and that awareness alone begins to shift something within me. There are situations in my life right now that I would have never chosen, moments that have required more patience than I thought I had, and circumstances that have stretched my understanding beyond what feels comfortable. I have tried to make sense of them, to organize them into something logical, something I can control, or at least predict. But the truth is that not everything fits into understanding. And perhaps part of what makes this difficult is not just what is happening, but the fact that I cannot resolve it quickly or neatly. In these kinds of moments, it is easy for my mind to move ahead of me, to imagine outcomes, to rehearse conversations, to anticipate what might go wrong before anything even happens. It creates a tension that sits quietly in the background, influencing how I think, how I respond, and even how I rest. And over time, that tension becomes exhausting, not because I am weak, but because I have been holding too much for too long without release. So here, in this space, I begin to acknowledge that I do not have to carry everything at once. I do not have to solve every problem in a single moment. I do not have to understand every outcome before it unfolds. There is a different way to move through this, one that is not driven by pressure or urgency, but by a steady awareness that I am not alone in what I am facing. There is also something within me that still wants to trust, even if it feels quieter now than before. It may not feel as strong or as confident as it once did, but it is still present, and that matters. It is not gone, it is not lost. It is simply being tested in ways that I don't understand. And instead of judging that part of me, I choose to recognize it, to protect it, and to allow it to grow at its own pace. As I sit with this, I begin to see that faith is not always loud or certain. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is hesitant, and sometimes it exists alongside questions that have not yet been answered. And that does not make it any less real. In fact, it may be more honest because it is not based on everything being clear, but on the decision to remain open even when clarity has not yet arrived. Help me to move through this day with that kind of awareness, not forcing myself into a state I do not feel, but allowing a steady presence to guide how I think, how I respond, and how I carry what is in front of me. Let me slow down where I need to, pause where I feel overwhelmed, and return to a sense of grounding instead of reacting out of tension. There are still responsibilities ahead, things that require my attention, conversations that may not be easy, and decisions that may not feel clear right away. But I do not have to approach them with the same weight I have been carrying. I can approach them with a different posture, one that allows space between my thoughts and my reactions, one that gives me room to choose how I respond instead of being driven by what I feel in the moment. As this prayer continues, I begin to feel a slight shift, not in everything around me, but within myself. A slowing down, a softening, a small but noticeable difference in how I am holding what I am facing. And even if that shift feels subtle, I recognize that it is meaningful. It is a reminder that change does not always happen all at once, but in small moments of awareness that begin to build over time. So I remain here a little longer, not rushing away from this space, not immediately returning to the pace of everything outside of it, but allowing this moment to settle within me. Because what I need right now is not more urgency, not more pressure, but a steady presence that allows me to move forward without feeling overwhelmed by everything at once. Faithful God, as I continue in this moment with you, I begin to notice how often I have been trying to appear steady on the outside while internally feeling uncertain. There is a kind of pressure that comes from wanting to hold everything together, from wanting to respond correctly, to stay composed, to not let what I feel inside show too much. And over time, that effort becomes heavy, not because I am incapable, but because I have been carrying more than I was meant to hold on my own. There are moments when I question whether I am doing enough, Whether I am handling things the right way, whether I should be stronger, calmer, or more certain than I currently feel. And those thoughts, even when they seem small at first, begin to accumulate. They create a quiet tension that affects how I move through my day, how I speak to others, and how I speak to myself. It becomes easy to overlook how much of that pressure is self-imposed, how much of it comes from expectations that I may not even realize I am carrying. In the middle of this, I begin to understand that part of what I need is not to become stronger in the way I imagined, but to become more honest with where I actually am, to recognize when I feel tired instead of pushing through it without pause, to admit when something feels uncertain instead of pretending that I have clarity, and to allow myself to slow down without immediately feeling like I am falling behind. There are situations that do not resolve quickly, emotions that do not disappear on command, and questions that take time to unfold, and trying to rush through those processes has only made them feel heavier. So instead of forcing resolution, I begin to allow space. Space for things to unfold, space for understanding to come gradually, and space for myself to move at a pace that is sustainable rather than overwhelming. I also begin to see how much of my discomfort comes from trying to anticipate what has not yet happened. My mind moves ahead, creating possibilities, scenarios, and outcomes that may never even take place. And in doing so, I end up carrying not only what is real but also what is imagined. That adds another layer of weight that I do not need to hold. So in this moment, I begin to pull my attention back, not to everything that could happen, but to what is actually in front of me right now, what I can do, what I can manage, and what I can choose in this present moment. That shift alone creates a sense of relief, because it reduces the distance between where I am and where my mind keeps trying to go. There is also something important about recognizing that uncertainty does not mean absence. Just because I do not see clear direction does not mean that nothing is happening. Just because I do not feel strong does not mean that I am without support. There are things unfolding beyond what I can immediately perceive, and part of trust is allowing that to be enough, even when I cannot fully see it. As I sit with this awareness, I begin to notice that I do not need to force a certain emotional state in order to move forward. I do not need to convince myself that everything is fine when it is not, and I do not need to deny what I feel in order to maintain a sense of faith. Instead, I can carry both at the same time. I can acknowledge what is difficult while still remaining open to what is possible. This balance does not happen all at once, and it does not need to. It develops gradually through moments like this where I pause, reflect, and choose to respond differently. It is built through small decisions to slow down, to breathe, to return to what is steady instead of reacting to what feels overwhelming. As this prayer continues, I become more aware of how I want to move through the rest of this day. Not rushed, not pressured, and not driven by everything that feels urgent, but with a quieter sense of direction, one that allows me to engage with what is in front of me without losing myself in it. There is still uncertainty, and there may continue to be for some time, but it no longer feels as consuming as it did before. Not because everything has changed, but because something within me has begun to shift. A small but meaningful adjustment in how I hold what I am experiencing. And that shift, even if it feels subtle, gives me enough to continue. Not with all the answers, not with complete clarity, but with a steadiness that allows me to take the next step without being overwhelmed by everything that follows. Loving Father, as I come to the end of this moment of prayer, I begin to notice that while nothing around me may have immediately changed, something within me has become quieter, more settled, and less burdened by the need to understand everything at once. There is still uncertainty, there are still questions that have not been answered, and there are still situations that require patience. But they no longer feel as overwhelming as they did before I paused and allowed myself to be present here with you. That difference may be subtle, but it is real, and I choose to recognize it rather than dismiss it. As I prepare to continue with the rest of this day, I understand that I am not stepping back into my life in the same way I was moving before. There is now a small but meaningful awareness within me that I can carry forward. Something that allows me to respond instead of react, to pause instead of rushing into conclusions, and to remain grounded even when things around me feel unstable. I do not need to move with the same urgency that was driving me earlier. And I do not need to hold on to every thought that tries to pull me in different directions. There will still be moments today where I feel pressure, where situations arise that I cannot control, and where my thoughts may begin to move ahead of me again. But I am not without the ability to return to this place of steadiness. I can pause, I can breathe, and I can remind myself that I am not navigating this alone. That truth does not depend on how I feel in any given moment, and it does not disappear when things become difficult. It remains constant, even when my perception shifts. Help me to carry that awareness into everything I do next. In the conversations I have, in the decisions I need to make, and in the responsibilities that require my attention, allow me to remain present instead of overwhelmed. Let me engage with what is in front of me without trying to control what has not yet happened, and without allowing my mind to create additional weight that does not belong to this moment. There is also a part of me that is learning to release the expectation that I must always feel certain in order to move forward. I am beginning to understand that clarity does not always come before action, and that sometimes the next step becomes visible only after I take it. That requires a different kind of trust, one that is not based on having everything figured out, but on being willing to move with what I have right now. As I continue through this day, remind me that I am allowed to move at a pace that is steady rather than rushed, thoughtful rather than reactive, and grounded rather than scattered. I do not need to prove anything through how quickly I respond or how much I can carry at once. I can move with intention, making choices that reflect a quieter and more centered state of mind. There may still be moments where doubt appears, where I question whether things will work out, or whether I am handling everything the way I should. But those moments do not define me, and they do not erase the progress that is happening within me. They are simply part of the process of learning how to navigate uncertainty without becoming consumed by it. As I reflect on this, I recognize that growth does not always feel strong or confident. Sometimes it feels like continuing even when things are unclear, like choosing not to give up even when I feel tired, and like holding on to a sense of trust even when it feels quieter than before. And that kind of growth, even if it is not visible to others, is meaningful. So I move forward with that understanding, not expecting everything to suddenly become easy, but knowing that I am no longer approaching it from the same place. There is a steadiness within me now that was not as present before, and even if it is still developing, it is enough to carry me into what comes next. And as I step into the rest of this day, I hold on to the awareness that I am supported, that I am guided, and that I am not required to have all the answers in order to continue moving forward. I can take the next step, and then the next, allowing clarity to come in its own time, rather than forcing it to appear all at once. With that, I release the pressure I have been holding. I loosen my grip on what I cannot control, and I choose to move forward with a calmer mind, a steadier heart, and a quiet trust that continues to grow even in the middle of uncertainty. Amen.